Today we're gonna go through setting up a bladder bag pump on a UV cure system. We've got our pail open with the bladder bag inside. The bags come with a cap, and there's an internal cap and an external retainer on this. We'll leave that in place for now. I'm gonna get the pump inductor ready. So when you're loading a pail, you can take the inductor plate right off of the bottom. All right, now I'm raising up the ram to get that up out of the way. And the plate is, completely free. You can handle that. I'm gonna set it down for a minute. Put the pail in place. You can see this inductor plate has a retaining clip for the bag, the neck of the bag, and that will fit through the hole, and then we put the clip on. The bladder bags have a blue cap on the inside. It can be challenging to take out. We've got this one loose. It's a good idea to save the cap, set it aside, so if you do need to store the container, you can put the cap back in, save this retaining cover, pop it on, help you if you need to store the container long term. Right, now we're ready to put the neck of the bag into the plate. Need to make sure that the clip is all the way in place. It fits into a pocket on the mating hub from the pump. At this stage, there's some air in the bag, and you want to be careful not to press down on the inductor. You'll create essentially a volcano, make a big mess. I'm going to bring the pump ram and the hub back down to the plate and mate the parts together. Stopping just a little bit shy so I can have room to work. You wouldn't want to tighten one screw all the way, so the other ones will be hard to start and you may cross thread them. The clip on the inner ring slides out of place. It won't come together. It looks like it doesn't want to seat into the pocket now. So I'm going to look between the plate. I can push that. I can see that the clip slid out, so I'm just taking a screwdriver, pushing it back in. As you tighten the hub onto the inductor plate, there's also a rubber seal inside the hub. So as they come together, it's forming a nice seal on the lip of the bladder bag. All right, we have the bag completely loaded. So I'm gonna take WD-40 in this case, wipe some around inside the pail. It just helps the seal slide down easier. We keep the ram pressure low. We don't want to put a lot of force on the bag. We certainly don't want to rupture the bag. I've got ram pressure right now approximately 20 psi. And so the pail is loaded and we're ready to turn the pump on and start the prime process. The first thing to prime is the front of the pump. We use this bleed valve here. Right now, this pump does have a solenoid on top. We have that enabled, so the solenoid is on. If I turn on the pump switch, it'll turn on the air to the motor. I have the pressure on the pump backed out, so I'm turning on the pump. The pressure regulator is what's controlling the pump now. You can hear it begin to cycle. I'm going to use the on-off switch to control it. I'm running the pump at a low pressure for the priming process. I'll open the bleed valve on the pump, let it run a little. Getting a nice steady flow of material. You can hear, there we go, the pump cycling. It's running real slow with the low air pressure setting, which is good. We'll close off that bleed valve. Then as we move up, this pump is feeding a material filter on the top, and on the back side of the filter we have another relief valve so we can bleed material right out the line at that point. Open that valve. As I open it, you can hear air escape, and you can see we already have some material coming out. So we're good there. We have a hose, a somewhat long hose going to the automation cell on this machine. That hose is full of air, and as the pump is actuating, it's pushing material into the line, compressing the air, so material is able to move pretty far upstream even though we have it capped off. But we have a good flow of material here with no air bubbles, so we'll move on down to the end of the hose. We're going to shoot bleeding the supply hose. On this system we have our supply hose running to a manifold, and then that will feed the downstream dispenser. At this point we'll unplug the manifold so we can allow material to flow through the line. I have the pump turned off. I'm right next to the pump so I can turn it on and off and stop it when I see material flow. If this point is far from the pump, you may need a helper to turn it off so that you can stop the flow and get your plugs back in place. But we'll go ahead and I'll turn the pump on. I still have it set at relatively low pressure, so it should pump slowly. It may stall out, so I'll turn up the pressure if needed to push material through the hose. Once it gets here, I'll turn it off. So I am turning up the pressure on the pump. It takes a little bit more to push material through the hose. Sure. So we have flow. I don't see bubbles. I'm going to turn the pump off at that point. We have our hose, our main supply hose, primed or bled out to this point. Cap off our manifold, and we'll move on to the next step shortly. So we've bled out the supply hose to the manifold. This is the last section of hose feeding the rotometer here. I'm going to turn the pump back off momentarily, take that plug out. There's some pressure in the line already, so the material might flow a little bit. I'll turn the pump on, let it cycle for a few seconds to make sure it pushes out any air bubbles. And we're already getting a good steady flow of material, so I'm going to plug off the line. We're not quite ready to hook up to our rotometer yet. Cap this off, keep the air out. Keep the line primed and fresh and ready to go when we are ready to connect to the rotometer. A little snug to make sure it's airtight, and we can let that sit.
After priming the hose, next we connect to the inlet fitting of, in this case, the rotometer, making sure that the nozzle is connected to the outlet of the rotometer and is not plugged so material can dispense freely. If the outlet is plugged, it can build up excess pressure and damage the seals on this type of progressive cavity pump. Next, turn the supply pump back on and run the motor to dispense material. If you have any further questions about how to prime your pump, feel free to contact us.